Well, this year has been filled of lots of smaller acts coming out of the woodwork and really planting their flag in the progressive rock landscape. So, yeah, let's not stop this train. Let's keep going. Turf Ascension from Bubblemath. So Bubblemath is a kind of eclectic prog outfit that got their start in the mid to late 90s, and they really didn't put out their first album until like almost the mid 2000s, with their first album being Such Fine Particles of the Universe in 2001. Then they took a pretty long hiatus and they released their sophomore album in 2017 with Edit Peptide. Both of those albums did relatively okay in terms of the prog scene. I mean, I never really heard about them until this release, so it never really crossed my wavelengths. It never really crossed my desk, and it wasn't until I heard a couple people within the prog sphere talk about Turf Ascension that decided to take a look, decided to have a peek at what this band actually had going for them. Yeah, so now we come to 2022 with their third full-length album of Turf Ascension. And Bubblemath is made up of Blake Albinson on guitars, Jay Barrett on bass, Kai Ebenson on keyboards and vocals, James Flagg on drums and vocals, and Jonathan G. Smith on vocals and guitars. And these five fellas really do showcase how tight they've been playing and just how talented they are at supplying support and, I guess, demand from one another. The type of music that they're playing is very similar to like a Gentle Giant, or a more modern take would actually be Ekelin, if you've ever heard of them. And I'm hearing a lot of that flavor on this. It's very jazzy in approach. It's very all over the place. It's very chaotic but ordered. I mean, you're never left bored at any point. And the thing that I really love about this style of music is that they're allowing the tracks to take a little bit of a longer form. So unlike Gentle Giant, that really kept the tracks under 4 or 5 minutes outside of, the odd one here and there. All of their tracks were very tight, very precise, almost like mathematically meticulous in that case. But Bubblemath is able to stretch their legs a little bit more like how Ekelin does. Like Ekelin has a lot of tracks that are, 10, sometimes 20, even 50 minutes long with their My album. And one of the things that I keep coming back to is my thought about these two bands, like Ekelin and Bubblemath, and how similar but also different they are. The one drawback that I will give this album, and I want to kind of get it out of the way first and foremost, so that I can then gush about this album moving forward, is that I feel like even though all these passages have really meaty hooks, they have really memorable sections and very like tight performances and tight playing styles, half the time I feel as though they're not really building to anything substantial that they're not already laying down. Like, I know that that's not necessarily a staple of prog and progressive rock, but I always like longer stretches of music to at least build to something interesting. And this was something that Ekelin was so well at doing, at least within, their mid-career albums. They were able to really capture an idea or an essence, build towards it, and then pay it off. And I feel like Bubblemath doesn't quite have that same craftsmanship when it comes to orchestration and constructing a track. Even though most of these tracks go on past the 10-minute mark, with the shortest track being the third track of Decrypted at almost 10 minutes, I just feel as though they're not really building to anything. They're just kind of wandering the landscape and not really going anywhere in particular. And I mean, this is a perfect example of when you're going on a trip, the real trip is the journey that you take. It's not the destination that you have going forth with this. And in some cases, it provides a listening experience that, as I mentioned at the beginning, always leaves you on your toes. It never leaves you bored. It always makes you wonder, where are they going with this? Where are they going to take this? But at no point does it ever really resolve into anything. And, you could kind of make the case that this is much more of a jazz presentation of music. It is much more off the top of your head, very organic, very ethereal in that sense. But because of that, I don't know. It just doesn't really build to anything all that exciting. Anyway, I've talked way too long about this. Let's get into the actual tracks, and I want to gush a little bit because, as I mentioned, the musicianship is really what you come to this album for. They're tight, they're precise, they are able to balance very, very well this whole chaotic order within it. Like every time I'm listening to this album, I always think, are they going to lose the through line? Are they going to lose the magic that's going on here? Because they're building some really tasty and really interesting licks and really interesting ideas, and they never really miss the beat. You know, they always are able to deliver in that expression. And this can be found within the opening track of Surface Tension that's almost about, 18 minutes long. It's 17 minutes and 57 seconds long. So you're in for a long haul. And what I really appreciate and what I really like is the storytelling aspect within the lyrical content on this. I really like that it's kind of this reflection on youth and coming into adolescence and into adulthood and being in this almost no man's land between childhood and adults and not really knowing how to play that game, because you still have like all these confinements that you have with a child. You don't have complete autonomy of yourself. You have to go to school. You have to play by other people's rules, and you have to be able to do those kinds of things. But you're starting to get a little bit more personal autonomy within yourself. You're starting to realize that you are able to play within boundaries. You can call certain shots, and you can start to, question things that are being presented in front of you. You start to have that critical thinking aspect of it. So it's having this critical aspect, this higher order thinking, but still within the struggles of so much confinement and the struggles that are found within that. And I really, really enjoy the different areas that we have on that. I mean, the title of this track, Surface Tension, really is like a perfect moniker because it is that tension that you feel within this stage of your life where, it's this battle between autonomy and control. And I love how really the music kind of follows that as well. You have this very chaotic, very questioning, very like, we don't want to just follow whatever it is that people are doing. We want to try our own things. We want to be much more jazzy in approach. We want to lean more heavily on avant-garde styles of music, but we still have to play music that appeals for the masses, and it's that tension, it's that balancing act. And I do feel as though they always err on the side of more experimentation, which obviously as proggers, we want to see. I really enjoy that dance. And, the 18 minutes that this track holds has so much different aspects going on, and I like how they do introduce moments here and there that then get picked up later on in the track, and they reprise a few motifs that I really enjoy. And I guess this also leads into my second major criticism, is that all these tracks do feel very similar. And I mean, there's only 4 tracks on here, and I did wish that there was a little bit more variations between the tracks, because it does feel as though they just decided to stop one track at one point and then pretty much just pick up the thread in the next track. And in one case, this provides a very good and very unified listen from start to finish. But on the other hand, it does begin to feel very similar, and it does feel as though we're kind of treading water and stamping over the same ground that's already been packed deep. And this comes into the second track of Everything, and we're kind of in the same boat that we were with Surface Tension. The one thing I will say, though, about Everything is at least they really have this mastery of start and stops. Moving from one section of the track that's a little bit more jazzy, a little bit more avant-garde in approach, to moving it over into very somber, very heavenly, much more accessible tracks, and then moving the needle between these two back and forth provides a very interesting kind of groundwork for this. This is one of the tracks that I will give a pass, that I'm not too worried about it going anywhere, because I really do love this handover between the somber parts and the more avant-garde parts, and wondering when this switch is going to happen and how they're going to manifest this as well. And this continues on with Decryption, the shorter track, the third piece on here. And what I really appreciate about this track is how dark and menacing it feels in contrast to the other ones. And it's a little bit more grating on the guitar works. It's a little bit more menacing in its structure in that case. And I really love the drumming on this one. I love how bombastic it feels at times and how complex the rhythm styles are to really root this song steadfast where it is. It's almost like this tether that grounds it and allows the balloon of this main track to just kind of wander all around. And it's also one of the more avant-garde and experimental parts of it. Like I'm getting flavors of a Van der Graaf generator, especially how you'll have the guitars doing something really strange on the one side that's blending and playing around the keyboards, and the two really don't mesh with one another. And then you have this bass line that basically strings the two pieces together to provide a very interesting rhythm section that the drums are able to keep time with both, even though both are kind of working on their own little planets there. And again, I'm awed by the musicianship on here. I really am. Like, the boys are playing so tightly that even if one note sequence was just slightly off, it would all come unraveling. But man, they're able to really tie this thing together. And then we come to the final piece of Refuse, and I'm loving how like heavy-handed this is. This is the most rockin', the most bombastic piece on here. It's not quite as jazzy, but it does have a lot of avant-garde and a lot more experimentation on it. This is the song that's most similar to a Gentle Giant. Like I'm feeling a lot of like Proclamation. Yeah, in the end, Turf Ascension from Bubblemath was one that kept rewarding me the more I listened to it. After a little bit though, I did, those quabbles that I had with it was starting to make me not as excited to go back to it, because I didn't have like any major piece that I was like really excited for. But when I was in it, I was really awed by the musicianship. I really enjoyed how tight they all were within their presentation of it. For a band that kind of came out of nowhere for me, it really did blow me away. It really did pack a powerful punch that I really, really enjoyed. So it's for that reason that I'll say that Turf Ascension by Bubblemath is one that I would download. I would check this one out if you're into a prog piece that's a little bit more avant-garde. It has a lot more of the jazz styles within its music. It's challenging, but not grating. It's got a lot of textures and a lot of very strange rhythm styles and very... you can't really hold on to it. It's almost like trying to hold a bag of water while it's moving around on surface there. Yeah, that's what I've got for Turf Ascension from Bubblemath. What did you guys think about this album? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Have you checked it out? If you haven't, give it a spin. You might have some good times with it. Whatever you thought about this album, please let me know by commenting down below. And that's all I got for you guys today. So, thank you all so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.